Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Kevork Almassian. Thank you very much for tuning into today's live streaming. I appreciate you all, and I really appreciate you tuning and supporting yesterday's live streaming, which reached to 13,000 views, actually, which I addressed why the CNN doesn't deserve, especially Christian Amanpour, to get an exclusive interview with President Putin. And I can see in the comments some people calling me Vork. I think it's a beautiful name as well. And Vork incoming and the Vorkminator. I think if I participate in any day in the future in any political campaign, I should call myself the Vorkminator. That would be great. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning in from around the world. I really appreciate you all. In today's live streaming, I'm going to address a few topics together. The first topic is going to be the ceasefire, the potential ceasefire that failed between Israel and Hamas. There was a proposal and they were negotiating and they were mediators, and this has failed. And what does it mean for the future of this onslaught against the Palestinians of Gaza? Sweden declared that they stopped the investigations on who did the Nord Stream pipelines, and they will keep their findings secret. They just shared their findings with Germany. Apparently, they don't want us to know who did the Nord Stream pipeline terrorist attack. I mean, I wonder who did it, right? And afterwards, we're going to, of course, address the Tucker Carlson's interview with Vladimir Putin, which is going to be published today as we speak, I think in 7 hours from now. And 6 hours after the end of this live streaming, it will be at 6 p.m. Eastern American time. So I think I will watch it tomorrow in the morning when I wake up, because it will be midnight here and I'm not going to lose my, change my sleep schedule for that. In any ways, guys, in the last live streaming, I received 2 constructive criticism. The first one is that the countdown video is very long, and they say that time is gold and all this stuff, and I truly understand that. However, when you do live streaming and you play a countdown, you attract and you invite more people to join the live streaming. And 4 minutes, in my opinion, is very fair number. And it's not really long. Some other live streamings, I see that they are playing 30 to 40 minutes countdowns. So I don't do that. I'm just playing 4 minutes countdown. I think it's fair. And if you're watching afterwards, after the end of the live streaming, there is always the time stamp. I write the show starts at 4 minutes in the description, and you can find the timestamp also is specified on the video. So you can click and you can skip the 4 minutes. The second one was that some of the videos that I screened yesterday, that the volume was not too high and inaudible for some people. And unfortunately, this is from the source. Like, I'm playing from the source, which is the CNN, for example. They posted this video on Christian Amanpour's personal professional account. And this is how the volume is. So I cannot change that. And if we have to blame anyone, we have to blame the technical guy of CNN. Anyways, guys, there were talks between Hamas and Israel through mediators, Egyptian mediator, the Qataris. Anthony Blinken was in the region and was talking with the Egyptian side, the Qatari side, the Palestinian side, the Lebanese side, and he did lots of diplomatic work in the region. But it seems that Netanyahu rejected the ceasefire with Hamas. And he says that the only solution for him is a complete annihilation of Hamas and total victory. And he posted a cringe video on his personal account. I say cringe because if you see his smile, look at his smile, guys, here on this video. It's like this guy is he doesn't really care what's happening, right? To his own people and also to the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. This murky, yellowish smile, I would just show you, like, look at this guy, man. If there are any Israelis watching this channel, I truly believe, guys, that your national interest doesn't lie with this guy. This guy is a psychopath. This guy is a criminal, and this guy could kill you, your family, and the rest of many of the Israelis for the sake of him staying in power and for the sake of his psychopathic goal, and that is the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians in Gaza. I will just play 1 minute of his statement and let's see what he has to say about why he chose to reject the ceasefire.
Tonight, I want to speak to you about total victory. Our security and the prospects of peace in the Middle East depend on one thing: total victory over Hamas. At the start of the war, I outlined 3 goals: destroy Hamas, free the hostages, and ensure that Gaza doesn't pose a threat to Israel anytime in the future. Achieving these goals will ensure Israel's security and pave the way for additional historic peace agreements with our Arab neighbors. But peace and security require total victory over Hamas. We cannot accept anything else. Can you imagine what will happen if we don't have total victory? Hamas leaders have already pledged they'll repeat the October 7th massacre over and over and over again. No nation can accept that. We certainly won't. Without total victory, Iran and its terror proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and others, will be emboldened to subvert moderate states in the Middle East. They'll threaten the entire free world. Only total victory will prevent that. And total victory is within our reach.
I mean, this guy is really delusional, really. Like, it's been over 4 months that he's conducting this full-scale onslaught against the Palestinians. And up until this moment, he couldn't kill one senior Hamas commander or leader. And he cannot name any. They claim that they're killing Hamas militants every day, but they cannot name these senior officers or senior commanders from Hamas. Secondly, up until this moment, you can see that Hamas, I personally, probably you know my opinion already, I'm not a fan of Hamas, and I've been criticizing them in the past. But I watch what's happening in the Gaza Strip, and I'm analyzing what's happening there. And I watch the videos coming from the Hamas side and from the Israeli side, and you can see that the combatants of Hamas, they are very active in different neighborhoods in the Gaza Strip, and they are waging this is called the 4th generation of asymmetrical warfare against the Israeli army. And that is a type of warfare that you know that you cannot reach a decisive victory against your enemy, your paramilitary group, and you resort into different types of tactics. It's small units of fighters, probably between 1 to 5 militants, for example, in every neighborhood, and you are ambushing your enemy. You come out and you fire your RPGs, or what they call the Yasin rocket, for example, and they're just trying to fight as a ghost against the Israeli forces. And they're achieving, to be honest with you, it's a very interesting results, right? If you watch the videos and you see how they are fighting against the Israelis and how they come with themselves and they put the grenades and they put the explosives on the machinery and the tanks of the Israeli occupation forces, you see that these people are not really afraid of the Israeli forces. And unlike the Israeli forces, the Hamas side, they know the geography very well, and they are efficiently fighting against the Israeli forces. And to be honest, if you compare what's happening in 2024 with the 1967 war, for example, in 1967, in 6 days, Israel occupied the Golan Heights, occupied all of Palestine, occupied the Sinai. And now, after 4 months, in a very small, tiny area in the Gaza Strip, they are incapable of achieving a decisive victory against Hamas. And I think it's an illusion from the Netanyahu side to believe and think that he can achieve a decisive victory against Hamas. And therefore, the escalation is going to increase in the next phase, in the next few days. And you will see that the anti-Israeli actors in the region, they will engage more and more in the hostilities, not only against the Israeli forces, but also against the American forces who are sitting ducks in different places. And the Americans will also pay a price. And you see that the Americans are now bombing in Iraq again to kill Iraqi commanders who were part of the popular mobilization units. And this is going to only have its backlash against the Americans themselves. So the Israelis aren't only headed by Netanyahu harming themselves, but they're harming their ally, the United States, which is, it seems that they have no intention to back off or criticize Israel or try to force Israel to change course, because all this talk about that Jake Sullivan and the Secretary of State, they said that there is going to be a different phase of warfare in the Gaza Strip. It didn't start, it didn't happen, and the casualty rate is very high, and the carpet bombing is still ongoing. And the Palestinians are still dying every day, whether it's in the Gaza Strip or in the West Bank. So this really raises the question, who is able to influence the policy of Israel? If the Americans cannot do that, so the Americans, I'm receiving comments say that it's the Israelis who have influence over the American foreign policy and not the other way around. This raises lots of questions. Who is the superpower here, right? Is it Israel or is it the United States? So now we are going to analysis of Elijah Maginier, who was our guest, by the way, on Syriana Analysis, and he has written a brilliant analysis on this case, on the failure of the ceasefire. And I made slides for you guys so that we can go through together and see what does it mean for the Palestinians in Gaza? What does it mean for Hamas? What does it mean for Israel? And why this ceasefire failed? So, Hamas, after consultations with leaders of various Palestinian resistance factions in Gaza, has given a positive response to Israel's proposal, which addresses critical issues such as a ceasefire, which doesn't mean an end to the war, an exchange of prisoners, the reconstruction of the Strip, and an increase in humanitarian aid. Hamas strategically delivered its response through Egypt and Qatar, coinciding with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's visit to Doha and ensuring that the American envoy could quickly convey Hamas's position to the highest levels of Israel for further discussion. In particular, the move has put Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in a difficult position, forcing him and his cabinet and security advisors to consider a constructive response, albeit with reservations. This marks the start of negotiations rather than their conclusion, suggesting an expected continuation of mediated talks amid ongoing hostilities in Gaza. Israel's initial proposal was conveyed to Qatar by Mossad chief David Barnea, who led an official Israeli delegation to the country last week. Netanyahu has expressed a willingness to exchange prisoners without halting military operations to achieve, quote, total victory, a change of government in Gaza, and complete control of the Strip. He has also threatened military action at Rafah, near the Egyptian border, if Hamas doesn't accept the terms of the ceasefire. Hamas's immediate and defiant response of "let him try" demonstrates its confidence in inflicting significant casualties on Israeli forces, as it has done throughout the more than 113-day conflict, and challenges Netanyahu's ability to achieve his stated goals. Benjamin Netanyahu faces significant challenges. The first one is the issue of the Israeli prisoners. The Israeli military is struggling to secure the release of all 136 Israeli prisoners, 31 of whom were reportedly killed by Israeli forces during the Gaza conflict. This situation has led to domestic unrest, with families of the prisoners protesting and accusing the prime minister and his far-right cabinet members of preferring the prisoners' death to their release. The second problem that he faces is failure to target Hamas leadership. Despite efforts to locate and eliminate Hamas leaders in Gaza, the Israeli occupation forces have admitted their inability to do so. They have also admitted to destroying only 10 to 20% of the tunnels under Gaza, indicating that Hamas's operational capabilities remain largely intact, which could lead to further Israeli casualties. The third problem is personal, legal, and political challenges. Netanyahu is seeking to insulate himself from the fallout of his failure to protect Israelis on 7 October and to avoid prosecution on 3 corruption charges. The fourth problem is the political stability concerns. Netanyahu is seeking assurances from Israel's opposition party that it will support his leadership for at least a year amid threats from far-right ministers to dissolve the coalition government, which would remove him from office. And finally, internal party rivalry. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant is reportedly waiting for an opportune moment to challenge Netanyahu's leadership within the Likud party, reportedly with the backing of the United States. These challenges highlight Netanyahu's complex political, military, and personal hurdles and significant uncertainty and instability in Israel's political landscape. In an unprecedented move in Israeli politics, Yair Lapid, a leader of the pro-US Israeli opposition, has offered Prime Minister Netanyahu a guarantee to support a new coalition government if far-right ministers resign. In addition, key figures in the small war cabinet, Ben Gantz, for example, and Gadi Eisenkot, have signaled their willingness to leave the government if Netanyahu rejects the Hamas proposal. With extensive military backgrounds, both generals have publicly stated their belief that the military's goal of forcibly releasing prisoners and defeating Hamas in Gaza are unattainable. Amid this internal political maneuvering, Netanyahu appeared to minimize the concerns of the prisoners' families, apparently hoping that Hamas would reject the preliminary proposal, allowing him to shift the blame to the Palestinians. But Hamas, which has members fluent in Hebrew, demanded the original version of Israel's proposal, wary of possible misinterpretations in the translation. This meticulous approach underlines their determination to understand the Israeli offer's implications fully. The Palestinian resistance led by Hamas conducted a thorough review of the Israeli draft, involving leaders both inside Gaza and in exile, culminating in a consensus on a final draft among all resistance factions in Gaza. A critical Hamas position in these negotiations is its skepticism about U.S. guarantees, given America's unwavering support for Israel, its track record of unfulfilled peace initiatives, and its protective stance towards Israel in international forums such as the United Nations. Consequently, Hamas's primary condition for any agreement is to include a diverse set of guarantors, such as Russia, the United States, Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey, to achieve a more balanced and credible commitment to any political or potential agreement. Hamas has proposed a structured approach to de-escalation hostilities divided into 3 45-day phases with specific objectives for each phase before moving on to the next. The first phase calls for an immediate and comprehensive ceasefire, allowing unrestricted movement of all Gazans across the Strip while Israeli forces withdraw from civilian areas. It also calls for at least 500 trucks to be allowed into the Strip at pre-war levels, as well as essential bulldozers, rescue equipment, and medical teams to clear rubble, recover bodies, and begin reconstruction and hospital refurbishment within a maximum of 3 years. It will also facilitate the medical treatment of some 11,000 wounded people abroad, as well as the delivery of 60,000 prefabricated houses and 200,000 tents to house the estimated 350,000 families who have lost their homes. It also calls for restoring essential services such as fresh water and electricity and resuming UNRWA and NGO activities halted due to unfounded allegations. As a reciprocal gesture, Hamas agrees to release a group of 45 prisoners, prioritizing the young, the elderly, and those in need of medical care, including former military reservists. In return, Israel would release 1,500 prisoners, including those serving long sentences. Hamas will nominate 500 of these prisoners, while Israel will select the remaining 1,000 to fulfill previous commitments to release individuals who were excluded from release or recaptured after the 2011 Gilad Shalit exchange, as well as those who attempted to escape from Gilboa prison. In addition, Hamas insists on restoring security around Al-Aqsa Mosque to 2002 levels and calls on Israel to prevent settler incursions, especially as the month of Ramadan approaches. These incursions have been encouraged by figures such as the Israeli Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, raising tensions and potentially inciting further conflict at this susceptible and holy site. Hamas seeks to rejuvenate the Gaza Strip and allow its residents to rebuild their lives and homes with international support and humanitarian aid to end the Israeli occupation. The Palestinian resistance recognizes the extensive destruction and loss of life that Israel has already inflicted on the people of Gaza and is prepared to continue the conflict indefinitely if its primary conditions and security guarantees are not met during negotiations, even though Israel estimates a 2-year time frame for dismantling Hamas capabilities. The central role of the United States, particularly Secretary Blinken, is being called into question as its efforts to end the conflict have yet to bear fruit. The urgency for a solution is growing with the U.S. presidential election looming. So far, the U.S. has not advocated a complete cessation of hostilities or a ceasefire, but rather a temporary truce, a stance unlikely to satisfy Hamas and other resistance groups. Qatar's proposal to reformulate the ceasefire as a long period of cessation of hostilities is intended to make the proposal more palatable to Israel and the US. However, the realization that an end to the conflict, despite heavy casualties and destruction, doesn't mean the defeat of Hamas, nor does it reassure Israeli settlers near Gaza of their safety. Hamas understands the significant implications for Israel, which explains its deliberate pace of response and cautious approach to finalizing the agreement. They anticipate Israel's initial rejection and expect a yes but response to their proposals. Describing Hamas's draft as impossible and unrealistic is seen by Israel as a standard initial response in negotiations between adversaries, where agreements are rarely reached after just one round of proposals. As a result, Prime Minister Netanyahu finds himself in a position where he can neither reject Hamas's terms outright nor accept them in full, reflecting the complex and challenging nature of these negotiations. Meanwhile, the war and the talks are expected to continue. So, this was a comprehensive analysis of the ceasefire proposal, the process of the negotiations, and how and why it failed at the current moment. And from the statement of Benjamin Netanyahu, I get the impression that he's not interested in conditional talks, even conditional talks that Elijah Magnier was referring to, that Netanyahu may say yes, but he didn't say that. Of course, the negotiations will continue. The Qataris, the Turks, the Americans will continue speaking between each other. But the initial goal that Netanyahu set, and that he raised the bar so high that complete and full annihilation of Hamas, in my opinion, is delusional. Complete demilitarization of the Gaza Strip is complete delusional. And even if, this is just my humble opinion, Israeli side was capable of destroying Hamas completely, right? They're going to pave the way for another group to spawn and grow and again form an armed resistance against the Israeli occupation forces, something that the Israelis, it seems that the successive governments, and whether right or left, haven't learned any lessons yet, or probably they don't want to learn the lesson because their intention is not to allow the Palestinians a free and sovereign state, but rather to occupy slowly but surely every inch of these Palestinian territories until complete annihilation of the Palestinians from their historic land. This is something could be the reason behind why that all these successive governments haven't learned that the root cause of the problem is the occupation, the subjugation, the humiliation of the Palestinians, the racial separation that human rights organization call an apartheid system in over the Palestinian territories, right? And those are not like political analysis. Those are conclusions by human rights organizations. And even Israeli newspapers and Israeli authors are criticizing the Netanyahu government for this. And this is coming from Gideon Levy. He says, Israel's dignity will be damaged. Hamas will be crowned winner, but the war will end. He says the alternative for this ceasefire, right? Because the ceasefire has failed. So what's the alternative for that? He says the alternative will be a lot worse for Israel. Hamas will not free its hostages unconditionally, just as Israel doesn't free its prisoners without getting something in return, and it has thousands of those right now. Israel told the Palestinians that they can win the early release of the prisoners held by Israel only by exchanging them for hostages. Israeli prisoners are bursting with security prisoners who, contrary to the way they are presented in the media's propaganda, are not all caught terrorists with blood on their hands. Among them are numerous political prisoners of a regime that prohibits Palestinians from any kind of organizational activity. Many others have been convicted of trivial offenses and sentences to draconian punishments. If there is any more need to prove the existence of Israeli apartheid, it is the separate court systems for Jews and Palestinians. There are even those who release. There are even those whose release will be to Israel's benefit. First and foremost, for example, Marwan Barghouthi. He's a Palestinian political personality in the Israeli jails. He says if Israel is seriously interested in finding a partner to change the reality of endless wars, he can be found behind Israeli bars. This is the guy. This is Marwan Barghouthi. He's been in jail probably since 2005-6. Freeing 1,500 prisoners, as Hamas is asking, is neither a disaster nor is it painful. It will bring the hostages home. Disaster and pain will only result if they are not rescued. Nor would it be a disaster or painful to bring an end to this cursed war during which Israel lost its humanity without achieving its goals from the indiscriminate killing and destruction, the likes of which have only been seen in the most brutal of wars. Israel's dignity will indeed be damaged. Hamas will be crowned the winner of the war, a dubious winner, but a winner nevertheless. Even if Benjamin Netanyahu's total victory were to be achieved, which will of course never happen, Hamas has won the war. Therefore, it is better to put an end to it. This is coming from the Israeli Haaretz that the Benjamin Netanyahu's regime accuses them of being pro-Hamas. And Gideon Levy's opinion is very important here. And I'm one of the people when I was very younger and I was studying in Paris. This was in 2009, 2010, and I met a Palestinian friend there. And Marwan Barghouthi was in jail. And I asked him, do you think that when Marwan Barghouthi comes from out of jail, he will become the next leader of the Palestinians? Because this is my impression. And he was like, yeah, you can really foresee the future, because he said, I think that there are many leaders, revolutionary leaders, who were in the jail of their enemy. And when they left the jail, they become the revolutionary leader which led their country to liberation and also striking a strong peace, for example, with their enemy, or what they call in Arabic a brave peace agreement. I don't know. Probably Gideon Levy is correct. Probably they have someone in the prison like Marwan Barghouthi that he can replace probably this caricaturish clown who is ruling the West Bank, fraction of a West Bank called Mahmoud Abbas, who is nothing but a puppet for the Americans and on a payroll of different Arabic countries. This is the truth, right? Unfortunately speaking, the Israeli side has not left for the Palestinians an option. You have the option of Mahmoud Abbas, a complete clown, and the collaborator with the Israelis, and then you have Hamas and Islamic Jihad, right? So many people show solidarity and sympathy with Hamas, not out of liking the Hamas or Jihad, but because there is no alternative for them to try to pursue and support for the sake of their liberation, national liberation, and personal freedoms, right? Oh, guys, and the world is really crazy, man. Like we have an attack that happened on the Nord Stream pipelines that everybody wants to know the answers. And personally, I'm a journalist who wants to know concrete answers. And we are relying on leaks from investigative journalists. And now Sweden, which they were investigating this case, they closed the investigation. And it says Sweden's public prosecutor has closed an inquiry into underwater blasts that tore apart 2 pipelines carrying Russian gas to Germany after a 16-month investigation. Look at this. It is still unknown who blew up Nord Stream 1 and 2 in September 2022. Yeah, it's so mysterious, man. I don't know either who could be behind the blast of the Nord Stream pipelines. Prosecutor Mats Ljungqvist said the primary purpose had been to find out if Swedes were involved or if Swedish territory had been used. He concluded that Swedish jurisdiction didn't apply. So, khalas. SAPO, which is the foreign intelligence of Sweden, says the decision to shut down the inquiry was taken because it was considered not possible for the Swedish authorities to pursue the matter further. If you want my opinion about this, guys, this is my personal subjective opinion based on following and reading and first statements, reading investigations, and learning the geopolitics of the Ukraine war and also the struggle over the energy market in Europe. I am highly confident that it was the United States behind the blasts. And they have invested interests in that. And even if we don't have concrete evidence now, who has benefited the most from the blast of the Nord Stream pipelines? It's the United States. They are selling the liquefied natural gas now to Europe with very high prices. And the Europeans are buying recycled Russian oil from India, from China, from other third countries because they don't want to buy it directly from Russia. But either way, they are buying from Russia and they are financing the Russian budget if they are interested in that. But the reason for that is that the Americans know, and the strategists in the United States know, that increased trade relationship between Germany and Russia through the gas pipelines. So the gas pipelines that the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, they hyperactivated the German economy, the industry. There was a big boom in the German industry, cheap gas, and manufacturing is coming from, technologies are being produced here. So from the American point of view, especially in Brzezinski's mind, it is a disaster if the Germans and the Russians come together and they increase their trade relationship, because the increased trade relationship and this energy relationship between the both sides will also change the trust between them. It will increase the trust. It will change the nature of the relationship between Russia and Ukraine in a way that the Germans will not perceive the Russians as enemy. Therefore, this will also change the security architecture in Germany itself. And if there is no outside threat against Germany, such as Russia, there is no need for NATO. And if there is no need for NATO, there is no need for US troops on German territory, including nuclear weapons, right? Therefore, it is very important for the American decision makers to keep Germany and Russia separated from each other, because Russian gas and the German technology and industry and manufacturing together, if you combine them together, entire European continent from Russia to the West Europe, it will prosper, it will seek friendly relationship, and this will remove the United States from the equation. So in my opinion, the United States invested in the past decade or two in nurturing and supporting and helping some politicians to come to power, or in a position of senior positions in political parties in Germany. This is just my opinion, in order to sabotage this relationship with Russia. And nowadays we see that the current leadership in Germany, headed by Olaf Scholz, they are preparing for more investment in Ukraine and sending more armaments to Ukraine. And also they say that we have to get ready for war, probably in 5 years, with Russia. This scaremongering is only serving one country, and that is the deep state and the establishment and the military industrial complex in the United States. And This is just my opinion. And Arnaud Bertrand, he had a great take on this. He says, Nord Stream was unequivocally the largest act of war against the EU since the founding, with devastating consequences for its energy security and Europeans' prosperity. So naturally, we choose to stay silent on who did it. It's obvious why. The perpetrator is almost certainly either Ukraine or the US or both acting in concert. In either way, or in either case, admitting that one or the other did it would completely flip the whole narrative. Way too embarrassing to admit that the country we could defend attacked us. And even more embarrassing to admit the country that purportedly defends us attacked us. And tells you an awful lot about the European conception of democracy. You only have the right to know what doesn't challenge the status quo or threatens, quote, alliances. In other words, your leadership that defined the current strategy have decided that if you were to know about these things, you would probably vote for a different leadership with a different strategy. So it's better you do not know. I live in Germany, guys, and there are opposition parties such as the Linke Party, the left, and also now there is a new political party called the Sarah Wagenknecht team, I think, or the group of Sarah Wagenknecht, and also the AfD. So those are the few political parties and few politicians who are demanding the German government to release the results of the investigation, and they are tacitly accusing the United States. The rest, the majority of the political groups, they are mocking the politicians who are asking for answers for this. It's crazy, right? Excuse me. Now we move to Tucker Carlson's case, and there's many crazy things that happened in this case, guys. And I'm going to end this live streaming at the end with the cringiest video that I personally have seen since the start of the Ukraine war. And this is about this CNN exclusive interview with Zelensky. An interview that personally, I missed it. I don't know how, but today I saw the clip on Twitter and I was like, no. Today I have to show you guys this clip. If I watched it, you have to watch it too. So first, let's go to what Scott Ritter had to say about this. Tucker madness is good for America, he says. Scott Ritter, this is on his personal website. Let there be no doubt, Tucker Carlson has pulled off one of the most memorable journalistic accomplishments in modern history, and when the interview does air, it will literally and figuratively break the internet. As someone who has traveled to Russia twice in the past year to engage in people's diplomacy designed to advocate for better US-Russian relations, I applaud Tucker Carlson's decision to go to Moscow and get this interview. The American people have been infected with a virulent case of Russophobia transmitted to them via a political and economic elite who have built a model of American relevance predicated on the need for an enemy capable of sustaining a military, industrial, and congressional complex by justifying an expensive budget that leaves America weaker and shareholders wealthier. Rampant Russophobia threatens American security by creating a false sense of danger around which policies that could lead to a military confrontation with Russia and nuclear war are formulated and implemented. If the American people are to have any hope of surviving the next decade, then an antidote to the disease of Russophobia must be administered. Love him or hate him, Tucker Carlson, I'm guilty of having done both. I currently count Tucker as one of the good guys. He represents a massive media presence that operates outside the span of control of the informational elite in America, a social media-based presence which, given its association with Elon Musk's quote free speech platform X, cannot be shut down or silenced. It seems that every major personality in the mainstream media has weighed in on the issue, universally condemning Tucker for daring to operate outside his lane. No, it seems the right to interview Vladimir Putin apparently resides only with the chosen few, those self-anointed gatekeepers through which all information suitable for public consumption must pass. These American elites have gone insane. Their arrogance in assuming that they represent some sort of moral and ethical police force imbued with an extra constitutional powers designed to punish free speech when the content is no longer convenient to the official narrative is matched only by their collective ignorance of the Constitution when it comes to free speech. Tucker Carlson has not committed any criminal act. If people disagree with his actions or once the interview with the Russian president becomes public, his words or the words of the President Putin, then they are free to demonstrate the errors of Tucker, Putin, or both. The problem, however, is that the proponents of Russophobia operate in a fact-free environment where ideological hatred has replaced informed judgment, where actual knowledge about Russia has been supplanted with fantasy-laced fiction. He gives some examples here. Tucker Carlson's interview with President Putin represents the greatest threat to the proponents of Russophobia in recent history. I say this with more than a little bitterness, for myself and others have been at the forefront of the struggle against Russophobia for years with minimal impact. Tucker Carlson is an accomplished journalist. He knows how the game is played. There is no doubt that he will package the interview with President Putin in a manner which is both informative and entertaining. He will elicit responses designed to create controversy in the United States and Europe, to challenge the official narrative, and to inject a new point of view into the American public. My hope is that most Americans will come to share this belief, and that because of this interview, America will find itself on a path where peaceful coexistence with Russia is the preferred outcome. I truly hope that more Americans would watch this, and especially also Germans here would watch this interview, although I suspect that the majority won't, because the majority are not first of all, on Twitter, and secondly, even if they are on Twitter, there are a big portion of the people, they dislike Tucker Carlson himself, so they would not accept him doing this interview with Putin, and especially Putin is considered the Hitler of the 21st century, as you know, guys, here also in Germany. And if you do any, or if you are engaged in any activity or action, such as doing a podcast or saying something on Twitter that they consider it a support for the dictator Putin, then you could be sanctioned, right? And there is an example of a German journalist. She was in Donetsk or in Donbass, and she was reporting from there, and one of her statements was considered supportive for the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and they closed her bank accounts, and she was fined, and she could end up in jail for 3 years if she returns to Germany. So things like that is happening, so everybody has to be careful nowadays for speaking their minds on a very important case that is shaping the entire world, right, to the gate of Ukraine. So we want to listen to all sides. I want to listen to Putin, and I want to listen to Zelensky, and I want to listen to Xi, and I want to listen to Biden, and I want to listen to Netanyahu, and I have the right to listen to them, and I have the right to criticize them. So I haven't done any criticism of the journalists who interviewed Zelensky, right? They have the right to interview Zelensky. I have the right to criticize the content of the interview. So I will watch the interview tomorrow in the morning when I wake up on a cup of coffee, and I will write some notes, and I will do another live streaming to analyze this interview, because it's important. And I believe that this interview will break the internet. I believe that tens of millions of people will watch this interview on X or Twitter, something that no other president can do, because who is the other president that Tucker Carlson or any other journalist may interview and receive tens of millions of views? I don't think there is anyone. Maybe President Bashar al-Assad. Let's see if Tucker Carlson goes to Damascus and interviews Assad, then what will they do to Tucker Carlson? Oh my God, that would be so epic, man. If Tucker Carlson, anyone from Tucker Carlson's team is hearing, go to Damascus, man, and do this interview with Bashar al-Assad. There is a guy who is following me on Twitter, and I don't know why he's following me anyways. He is the director of the European values. And he says Tucker Carlson should be sanctioned by the EU for supporting Russian war crimes in Ukraine. He is free to do whether he wants. He is free to do whatever he wants, but would not be able to visit Europe. Please do it. Bro, why are you following me? What do you want from me? You should consider me an enemy, right? And Mikael, he is a former officer in the Swedish Armed Forces. He says, you are a good example why I hate the totalitarian liberals. They pretend to be liberal, but they are not real liberals who enjoy different opinions. They only want a market of ideas if they can ban any real opposition to their ideals. Don't complain in a future national conservative Europe if you are being ostracized and banned. You started it. Oh, wow. That's a really good point, man. By the way, Hillary Clinton also jumped into this case, and I don't know how this woman even has the audacity to comment on anything. She is a complete failure and complete warmonger and complete war criminal. And like this woman, if you find any spot in her body that is not soaked in blood, I would give you anything. You will not find. This woman is complete psychopathic criminal, right? And she still has the audacity to come and criticize Tucker Carlson. And she says that he is like a puppy dog for Tucker Carlson. Take a look.
I mean, he's like a puppy dog. You know, he somehow is, after having been fired from so many outlets in the United States, I would not be surprised if he emerges with a contract with an outlet, because he is a useful idiot. He says things that are not true. He parrots Vladimir Putin's pack of lies about Ukraine. So I don't see why Putin wouldn't give him an interview, because through him, he can, continue to lie about what his, objectives are in Ukraine and what he expects to see happen. It's really quite sad that not just somebody like Tucker Carlson, who has, as I said, been fired so many times because he seems unable to, correlate his reporting with the truth, but also because it's a sign that there are people in this country right now who are like a fifth column for Vladimir Putin. And why? I don't know. I mean, why are certain Republicans throwing their lot in? Why are, other Americans basically believing Putin? Why did Trump believe Putin more than our 11 intelligence agencies?
I don't know. Do you have a working theory?
I do have a working theory.
Oh my God. And see the journalist, like she's sitting there, like she's the puppy dog, right? She's sitting there not even challenging one point that Hillary Clinton has made. And you, as a journalist sitting in front of a war criminal, are we going to say that you are also a criminal now for sitting with her? Her hands is soaked in blood, in the blood of the Libyans, blood of the Iraqis, blood of the Syrians. Hundreds of thousands of them their deaths could be attributed to Hillary Clinton. And you're sitting in front of her and not challenging even one single idea that she raised. You're the puppet dog, right? You don't do journalism, man. It's like Hillary Clinton is the last person can comment about this case, right? Like, so halas, like seriously, man. And maybe if you don't understand or you don't know why the American people probably do not want a war with Russia, because they are sick and tired of you and this small, tiny elites and cabal in Washington, D.C., that you waged endless wars and killed millions and millions of people around the world. Maybe they are sick and tired of that. Maybe they are sick and tired of financing these wars. Maybe they're sick and tired that their taxpayer money is going to Ukraine. Maybe they're sick and tired that their taxpayer money is going to Syria to finance the stay of the American troops who are occupying our oil fields. Maybe they're sick and tired of the occupation of Iraq and Libya and bombing of the countries in Somalia, in Sudan. Maybe they're sick and tired after they watched what happened in Afghanistan. Their trillions of dollars were gone. Maybe because of that. If you don't understand why, maybe that's why. Maybe the Americans want just normal relationship with the rest of the world. Maybe they want their country to act normal and not like a bully. Here are some answers and some options. You can choose it. It's a multiple choice, Madame Clinton. Putin knows that if somebody interviews him, then this person will come under harsh criticism and attack, right? And the last time he was interviewed in length was by Oliver Stone, and this is the clip, like a behind scene clip between Oliver Stone and Putin. And Putin asked him, "Have you ever been beaten?" Oliver Stone says yes. Putin tells him, "So it's not going to be something new because you are going to suffer for what you are doing." Take a look. I really like Oliver Stone, man. He's really critical thinker, and he's really an American patriot, you know? Like, in my opinion, people like him are really patriots, and he wants the best for their nation. And they're one of the people who know how the deep state and the shadow state operates. Start like when they were involved, let's say, in the assassination of the JFK, because there is the documentary of Oliver Stone about that. And his documentary, Ukraine on Fire, that exposes how the United States, with the help of their allies in Europe, engineered the coup d'etat in Ukraine in 2014, and how they collaborated with the extreme far-right neo-Nazi groups in Ukraine to engineer this. He knows, right? So he tried to bring the amplified a point of view that is not heard in the United States. And there is a complete blackout now on Russian voices because of the banning of the Russian media channels. Guys, before I move to the last part of this live streaming, we are around 300 people watching this live streaming. I would really appreciate it, guys, if you just hit the like button. It really helps me with the algorithm of YouTube. Thank you so much. So now, why Putin didn't give this interview to CNN? Yesterday, we addressed this with Christian Amanpour's case. And today, I watched a new video on X, which I found its source in the CNN website. Could it be that Putin declined an interview with CNN due to a particular reason? Perhaps the answer lies within this rather very, very cringe interview conducted by CNN with Zelensky in July 2023, guys. This is the interview page on the CNN, and it says exclusive. Zelensky says he wanted counteroffensive to start much earlier to preempt Russian defenses. And I'm going to show you this part of the video when they're trying to show you the human side of Zelensky, right? And I want you guys to focus on the journalist and her body language, her eyes, and it's this is the cringiest thing that I ever seen for a very, very long time. So brace yourself, guys.
So many people look up to you. They rely on you. No one can imagine how hard that is. Do you do anything for yourself? Are you ever able to take a minute to read or to listen to music or something to sort of give yourself that a moment?
I have such moments, important to be in silence, to be alone. Alone, how can I be alone? Alone, I can be with music, it's true, or with a book. And early in the morning, when there are no sounds in
no air raid sirens,
no people, nobody. I mean, the people, our staff. I mean, nobody is in my cabinet. Nobody. I can just read, think, and the music helps really.
What music do you like?
Oh, I like AC/DC. And Ukrainian music. Of course, I like Ukrainian music a lot because Ukrainian, that's native language. That's why you understand not only music, you understand the words and etc. AC/DC, I don't understand all the words because of. But
you like the music.
Yeah, I like energy of AC/DC. I like Eric Clapton. A lot of Guns N' Roses. Maybe it's too old music for.
I understand. We're the same. We're the same.
I love it. No, it's important to have sometimes at 6, 7 in the morning some trainings.
Workout.
Yes, workouts. Or to do something with music, with such music, which gives you energy for all the day.
Man, like the focus of the journalist, it's she was looking to his lips all the time, right? Like you feel like there's like some sort of soft pornography is going on there. And there is someone who added some background music to this video, by the way, and they're doing it like a slow. That's why Putin didn't grant this interview to CNN to begin with. Maybe the world deserves to listen to long format interview and serious questions. We will see. We will see. I will not be generous with Tucker Carlson if he was not asking tough questions, good questions, questions that the Americans want to know the answers, Europeans want to know the answers, I want to know the answers. We will see, and we will evaluate his interview tomorrow, guys, 5 p.m. Central European time. Till then, what is the type of music that you listen? If that is the type of music that Zelensky listens. Personally, I like electronic music a lot, and I listen to techno a lot when I go now to the gym. So I'm going to my training. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into today's live streaming. I really appreciate you all, guys. Before you leave this live streaming, I would really appreciate if you hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and if you want to support my independent work like this one, you can become a patron. The link is scrolling on the screen, patreon.com/Syriana Analysis, and I will see you tomorrow, guys, at 5 p.m. Central European times. Salam.